I do have this unfortunate combo where I do genuinely really enjoy helping people, but unfortunately I just don't really enjoy being around them. From a personal preference standpoint, wouldn't need to lose his virginity to a dead lady. It's just that's the only way it's gonna happen. Look, about a year ago, I did a video specifically focusing on cannibalism. I said in that video that despite the fact that horror is inherently controversial and uncomfortable and all that jazz, that there are still certain subjects that remain particularly taboo. And that I thought that the two most taboo things remained cannibalism and necrophilia. And since I covered cannibalism in that video, now a year later, I decided to focus specifically on necrophilia. This video has been a long time coming, so let's just go ahead and jump in. First up, we have the Necro Sutra, The Complete Orgy by Kevin Sweeney. Apparently, originally, the story was divided into 3 different parts, but they've combined them all here into one nice little package. Now, the foreword to this book is by the Terry Musalata, who, if you know, you know, is the author of Baby in a Blender. When I saw that Terry Musalata wrote the foreword to this, I'm like, oh, are these guys, like, not cahoots, but are these guys in the same vein? As one would expect, a lot of these stories have some sort of connection with funeral homes, obviously just ease of access and whatnot. This is about a guy who his father owns a funeral home, and he started to learn the family business at a very young age, 12. And so now I'm not saying that that's why he turned out the way that he did, but you know, that might be a little young. That might be a little bit young to be playing around with bodies. You know what I mean. By the time we're introduced to this character, he is recording himself doing all sorts of nonsense with the bodies that are being entrusted to this funeral home. Indulgently perverse. This isn't someone who, despite the inherent perversion of necrophilia, this isn't somebody who is ashamed or romanticizing it in their own mind or anything. He is recording himself doing all sorts of messed up stuff. This isn't no missionary situation, okay? What was the first thing? The first thing was called the Jesus hand job. He drills holes into a dead body's hand, and then uses the hole in his or their hand. He records stuff like that, and then he puts it online on the dark web, and people are eating that shit up. They're like, yes, more please. And he's like, I'm on it. And he does. So it's a bunch of entries where it's like the Jesus hand job is entry number 27. In a different entry, he takes the body, a different body, and cuts it open and uses their intestines to choke himself while he gets himself off. You know, obviously, there is an inherent interest in doing weird sexual shit with the bodies, but a lot of what he's getting out of this is in uploading it to the dark web and trying to keep one-upping himself for his audience. The people are eating it up. It's like an instructional video. Like, hey, you want to do this? Watch me and you can mimic it. And then one guy, he's like, yeah, okay. And so he is inspired by all the things that he's seen this guy upload. And he's like, I want to do it. And so he does. So this person who is inspired by the OG guy, he goes by a Blue Peter, and he wears a mask. And he starts doing videos. He's basically treating it like YouTube, where he's like, hey guys, check this out. If you want to do what I'm doing, just subscribe. That is the basic plot. Doing depraved things with bodies on camera, uploading it to the dark web, getting attention for doing so, and it encouraging these men to just do more and more. My thoughts on the story itself. I do think that this is similar. If you have read A Baby in a Blender, or if you've read Dead Inside by Chandler Morrison, similar to those two books it kind of reminded me of. There is this sort of dark humor in it. There's moments that are genuinely funny. Honestly, I don't know why. They were funnier than they should be. And I look at a line like this objectively, and I recognize that it's not objectively that funny, but for some reason, every time I read this, it makes me laugh. I don't know why I'm like this. Yeah, I guess you kind of go into a book about a taboo subject like this. Even though different books are going to have different tones and all of this stuff, it's just the inherent subject matter. You're kind of expecting there to be a secretive nature to it. And so obviously you're kind of upending that expectation by the fact that he's uploading it to the dark web. But it goes beyond that. And I thought it was really funny because despite the fact that this happens more than once where it's revealed that a family member is aware of the person's, proclivities or whatever, it still shocked me every time. Like, what world are we living in where we're just openly discussing this with our family members? And the family members are like, okay with it, I guess? A year from now, I probably won't remember it very well, to be honest. But I enjoyed it while I was reading it. Although, as a quick mention, I did think it was interesting, the author, Kevin Sweeney, he brought up this sect of Hinduism that's called the Agori. They're known for extreme taboo-defying practices aimed at realizing non-duality and achieving liberation. So they intentionally do things that are depraved and taboo. Macabre rituals including meditating on corpses. I looked up the Agori to learn more about them. It seems like that belongs in this. Oh, Google. I don't know. I guess I thought that was kind of interesting. The idea that there actually is a religious sect. The belief that all opposites, pure and impure, good and evil, are illusory and that God resides in everything. So kind of the idea that good and evil are the same thing. It's in a weird way. It kind of seems like walking around the block to get next door to nihilism. If it's all the same, then it doesn't really matter. That being brought into all of this, that lack of shame, like I was talking about before, that people could possibly engage in this sort of stuff with dead bodies and not feel embarrassed or ashamed and to just think that it just is what it is. And it's really hard for me to wrap my head around that, but I do think it's interesting. While overall I would say the story isn't that deep, I do think that it is an interesting approach to necrophilia, of it not being shameful through, the eyes of the people committing it. Next up, we have A Suitable Corpse by William T. Adair. Okay, so our main character of this story is named Devin, and he is a funeral director guy. Devin is waiting for the right girl to lose his virginity to. And he hasn't found her yet, but one thing is for sure, she will be dead. And so as different ladies do be coming into his funeral home, sometimes he'll bring the body home with him, have dinner with her, and kind of sweet talk her a little bit. But he just hasn't found not quite the right girl. So he just always ends up just bringing the bodies back to the funeral home and treating them otherwise normally. So he has a young assistant named Frankie, who I feel like saying that he's a moron is maybe slightly exaggerated, but I also feel like saying he's naive is an understatement. So he's somewhere between being young and naive and being a complete moron. And so he can recognize when Devon is maybe acting a little peculiar. He's just always giving his boss Devon an unreasonable amount of benefit to the doubt. Benefit of the doubt. He's giving him the benefit of the doubt too much. Devon is going through life with all of that. Look, you could read this one of two ways. Devon starts to experience what is either supernatural influences, where the dead bodies are in fact talking to him, or he's fucking nuts and he's hallucinating all of this. Now, personally, I prefer that approach. I would prefer that he's just a raving lunatic and that he is hallucinating all these interactions. And it's this story. I loved this. This was so funny. Because it starts off, Devon just seems like a sad loser, or fucking whatever, right? When I say sad loser, like it seems harsh, and I don't necessarily mean that in the most sincere of ways, because I think that a lot of people can relate to that kind of starting point. Difficulty establishing relationships with real people, live, living people, being socially awkward, not knowing how to talk to people you're attracted to without being weird, and feeling insecure, feeling lonely when you do struggle socially. And it's obviously taking it to this extreme is don't do that. But I think that kind of the origin of those feelings is something a lot of people can relate to. And so you can feel sort of a level of sympathy for Devon. But then it's as soon as he starts hallucinating and and it really starts to take a hold on his life, because the bodies are making demands of him, and his life becomes increasingly stressful as he is still trying to find the right lady slash body to lose his virginity to. But he has all these other dead bodies being like, oh, I can help you with that, but you got to do something for me first. And it's just keeps escalating, and all of these characters, and there's just more and more dead bodies that are being added to it, and then this fucking moron Frankie in the background, like, well, this seems weird. His behavior has been kind of off lately. It seems like in theory he would be open to losing his virginity to a living woman. It's just that would never happen because he doesn't know how to talk to a woman in a way that doesn't make him seem like a fucking creep and a weirdo. This guy trying to lose his virginity, this idiot Frankie just kind of witnessing all of this to some degree, little tidbits from the sidelines, and this escalation of all these different dead bodies making demands to happen, and he's trying to cut deals. Don't get it twisted. This is very funny, but it is not without some solid gore, especially towards the end. The last 25% of the book or so really goes off the rails in a lot of ways. I think it's something that is common with socially awkward people. And so if you are one of those people and like, same, but this is the first step, okay? Listen to me. People be like, oh, just be confident. No. Like, well, yes, but that's not the first thing. If the behavior is inherently off-putting, then being confident is not going to be enough to save it. You know? Like, confidently bringing someone a dead squirrel as a gift is not going to make it more well received than if you were nervous when you did it. You know what I mean? Like, you gotta make sure that the initial behavior isn't too extreme first. An absolutely essential first step. This character is so funny because he's such a He's such a stereotype because he's like an incel, right? Like he doesn't want to be celibate, but he is. He is absolutely terrified at the prospect of being defiled by another man. Even though no woman seems to want him, that any gay man would be foaming at the mouth for the chance to get some of that, you know? This was my favorite out of the group. I was not expecting it to go in that direction, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really funny. I hate to have to mention it. There are a couple of little like grammar spelling errors that I noticed. Usually if it's just like one or two, I don't normally say anything, but if it's a handful, it bothers some people more than others. So just it wasn't enough that it bothered me. Just a heads up in case you're one of those people that it does. Next up, we have The Embalmer by Rayne, Havok. So again, we have somebody working at a funeral. Again, obviously, it's ease of access, okay? You know, whatever. Now, unlike the previous two stories, though, in this one, our perpetrator, our creep, our weirdo, is a lady. And our lady here, did she have a name? You know, I'm not proud of this, but it is amazing how often I neglect to write down the first name of the main character. So there's a woman, she's a mortician lady, she works at the funeral home, blah, 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 whatever. Now she has a coworker. Their workspace is in the basement. She lives in the house above. And she is just, like, I don't know how or why or what this woman was like before this moment in time. But this body comes in, and it is a man with an erect penis, which happens sometimes, I guess, when men die. I don't know. I've never seen that personally. I used to work at a nursing home. I've seen quite a few dead bodies. I've never seen that as a result of death. But apparently that is a thing that can happen. I don't know. But she is just enthralled, like obsessively horny for it. She just can't stop staring at this gigantic erection. And, well, she's like, damn, I really wish my coworker would go away. Because she does have a level of shame, and she does recognize that this is weird as shit. Here's the thing. Eventually her coworker does fuck off, and she's left alone with the body. And she, you know, it kind of starts off with like, oh, I shouldn't. Like, oh, this is kind of weird, blah, 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 blah. But it very quickly turns into all of these justifications. Am I actually doing any harm if I fuck this dead body? The penis is erect. I don't need to do anything to it. It's ready to go. I'm not really hurting him in any way. He can't feel any pain. Like, no, like what am I really hurting? What's the big deal? You know, like she's all these justifications. She looks through his little chart thingy that when he did the autopsy was done and all that stuff. There's like, oh, no STDs or anything like that. And she's like, great. She's on board with it. She finally decides to just have at her. And then this insane thing happens where, like, right at that moment where she is on him and she is doing the dang thing, 3 men break into the funeral home and catch her in the act, which, who would have thunk, right? But they do that and they're like, well, we've seen that now. I guess she was so distracted she didn't realize immediately, but he was able to get it a video of her riding that dead body's dick, just doing all of that. He caught it on his phone on video, and so they have proof that she did that. And so the reason why they were breaking in the first place, the timing was purely coincidental. Lucky for them. They did have a reason to break in that was unrelated to the big dick man. It was a completely different body that had something that they wanted in it. And so it becomes this weird thing where like these three terrible criminal men start blackmailing her that she needs to help dispose of bodies when they need a body disposed of. It starts off this relationship where she's happy because she got to fuck the hot dead body, but now she has all this drama because of these three other men. But here's the thing. One of the men, apparently really sexy. And she's like, you're alive and everything, but like, I wouldn't mind. It really wasn't about the body being dead specifically. She's just so horny for hot men, and it just happened to be the body of a hot man, and she had the opportunity to take advantage of it. But after that threshold is broken, she's like, I would be open to doing it again. And plus all the drama with those other three dudes, which things escalate there. So this is the only book that was from a woman's perspective. And I think it's really funny that it is also the book that is the most smut-centric. I don't know why our main character just became seemingly just insatiably horny, and then it just never turned off. I don't know what it was about that one man, just a big penis. Like, was that enough? That's all it took? She saw a big penis one time. She swears, though, that it never happened before, and I'm not sure I believe her. And last up, we have The Necrophiliac by Gabrielle Wittkop. The original book is in French, so the English version is The English version is translated by Dan Bapst. All of these books had very different energies to them. The first one being very, very extreme horror. The second one being gory and stuff, but also a lot of humor. Third one being rather horny, like genuinely smutty and horny. And then there's this one, which is by far the most romanticized version. This book is formatted in journal entries, and it is about this man who he does not work at a funeral home. He's an antiquarian. He works with antiques. So he's actually going to the cemetery to dig up bodies. So this is not a story about ease of access. Like, he is having to put in a lot of work every time he wants access to a body. He talks about a very strong early memory he had as an 8-year-old child when he saw his mother in her bed, like right after she died. And the family brought him in to see her, and that the impact that moment had on him, because when he saw her, he thought that she looked beautiful, better dead than she did when she was alive. And possibly that would have been true in a real instance. You figure if someone's sick and they're in a lot of pain, and then you see them, even if they're dead and they get that kind of waxy look to them, sometimes the look of death can be peaceful. And so it's very possible that a child could see a dead body and think that they looked better dead than alive if they were in a lot of pain or suffering while they were alive. Basically, the story, just as you're going through these journal entries, it's just talking about different bodies that are being dug up from the cemeteries, close calls that he's had with people almost catching him, police almost catching him. There are several instances of him witnessing other seemingly necrophiliacs, that there's a big difference between somebody who will take advantage of an opportunity if it comes along versus somebody who will seek that opportunity out. It reminded me a lot of Lolita in the way that both stories are talking about something that isn't just taboo, but something that is rightfully shameful. It almost kind of comes across like a coping mechanism, that on some level they are aware and they recognize that what they're doing, what they're engaging in, is truly shameful. Not justified, but by their wants. And that the fact that they are pursuing this is indicative of there being something wrong with them. And they cope with that by romanticizing it and by trying to make it seem like they're just like a tortured artist. They're misunderstood. That there's this beauty. There's this bastardization of the word love. Talking about how he falls in love with each body. As it's just their way of coping. They are not a tortured artist. They are a sick person who needs mental help. No! I'm sorry. No, guys, please. But here's the thing. This story is written, like I said, very beautifully. Like the prose, there's a lot of gorgeous lines in this, the way that things are described. It's written in a very pretty, flowy, poetic sort of way. The writing itself is very, very enjoyable. Here's the thing though. This isn't a particularly large book. It's under 100 pages. And yet, if I'm being honest, I did start to get a little bit bored because all that the prose and the beautiful writing, the character isn't really well rounded enough for this to be character driven, and there really isn't enough going on. There's no climax to the story. There's no escalation of events. It's just kind of more of the same over and over. I appreciated the beautiful writing, but overall it would have been a more memorable book from me if there had been some sort of real storyline to the whole thing. I needed more than just beautiful writing. I needed those beautiful words to be used to tell me more. But what I will say is that towards the end, where I was starting to get a little frustrated, feeling a little bored, but pushing through, there was a sentence, which is not one of the more beautiful sentences in the book. It comes across as a fairly inane sentence. Yeah, it just says, I wanted to live and I wanted to die, but I couldn't live nor die. It did come across to me as a bit of a revelation because I started to think that maybe the repetitiveness, the lack of build up or any sort of climax to the story, maybe that's intentional. Maybe this is supposed to sort of represent this sort of limbo that this sort of lifestyle inherently has. I mean, you think about it, with a dead person, there is no climax to that story, right? Like, there is no, you can't build a life with that person. You can't have children with that person. There's no goals together. You're constantly, if you can stand the smell for up to 2 weeks, and that's the max, and then you need to go find a new body. You're on this timeline and you're constantly in search of the next one. And it does sort of create this sort of hellish limbo where you're just constantly stuck in this state of repeat, constantly in search, constantly having to start over and never being able to actually build anything or grow, or it doesn't ever go anywhere because you're constantly starting over. Having that bit of a revelation, that does make me appreciate the book conceptually more, but it does change the fact that as I was reading it, that I did start to get a little bored. I enjoyed that there was at least one take of the romanticization of fucking dead bodies. I do wish that none of these books, this one came the closest, but none of these books had quite that level of desperation and despair that I was quite hoping for. I didn't quite get the real vulnerability that I was hoping to hit. There's this weird confidence in the perpetrators, like even in the Embalmer where she's second guessing herself. She knows it's weird as hell, but she starts justifying her behavior very quickly. Like, I just wanted someone to be submerged in shame, but doing it anyway. I wanted someone to just hate themselves, but to just be so pathetic and so weak that they just couldn't help themselves. That's what I wanted. And none of these really made me feel that. Because honestly, like the emotions of a suitable corpse, if it wasn't done in a way that was funny, it might have been closer because, like I said, he's trying to lose his virginity to the right girl. There is a level of vulnerability and stuff, but because the tone was more funny, which I did enjoy, it was my favorite of the group. I enjoyed it. I just really wanted just like a punch in the gut, and none of them, even though I liked all of them, none of them just quite ripped my heart out the way that I was hoping they would. Those are all 4 of the books that I read for this video. Now, I do want to briefly mention 2 more books that I have previously reviewed, so I'm not going to get into a big discussion of them now. Having a video about necrophilia, I feel like I have to at least mention them. It would only be fair. The first one is Motel Styx, which is by Jonathan Butcher and Michelle von Eschen. This story takes place in a world where when you die, or before you die, like as part of your will, you can give permission for people to fuck your body. Like, you know how some people will donate their body to science? You can donate your body to these motels, and then people go to these motels and fuck your body. People protest it and stuff because they're like, this is wrong, but it's legal. It's controversial, but it's legal. And that whole story kind of revolves around this man who his wife dies, and he finds out that she donated her body to one of these motels, and he is determined to go to the motel and try to reclaim her body before other stuff happens to it. And the other one that I feel must be mentioned is Exquisite Corpse by Poppy Z. Brite. This is about 2 serial killers. One serial killer, he goes to prison, he ends up escaping, he flees the country that he was in so he doesn't get caught again. And when he comes to America, I believe, he meets this other man who also just happens to be a serial killer, and also he's a cannibal. And so when these 2 serial killers combine forces, things, it's just that they reach new heights together.
I should have also mentioned Our Dead Girlfriend by John Athan.
I will link the videos where I reviewed those in the description. Both good books, both would be appropriate necrophilia books. But if you know one that you think would rip my heart out, that's what I want. I want one that's going to make me, despite myself, feel sorry for the main character. I want to feel sorry for that person who's fucking a dead body. That's what I want. The emotion, the torment, the despair, the lunacy, the madman. I want pain and suffering. I want regret and humiliation and remorse. I want stronger emotional turmoil. I'm in need. If you know, please let me know. But if you're looking for any of the things that I was talking about, that is my offering to you, so we can do some sort of exchange program. If you're still here, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. And maybe I'll see you the next time around. Bye! The amount of benefit of the doubt is too damn high. What was the original to that? Anyway, and causes. They don't care if it's a woman or another man. They don't care how old or how young. It's just that it's a dead body.